Hello, my name is Avery Taylor, and welcome to Rebuild October, a series where we rebuild a new team every day across the month of October. So, whether you're looking for your favorite team or just generally curious as to how every team should approach the offseason, then this is the series for you. And with that being said, let's jump right into the video. When you look at the war by position, it's clear that this roster gave some middling returns across the board. The pitching staff, headlined by Tariq Skubal, looked like a pretty good strength moving forward, while the bullpen leaves a lot to be desired. The Tigers aren't far off, but there's definite work that needs to be done if they want to build on their 2025 success. Before we dive into the impending free agent decisions, we need to talk about Tariq Skubal because that's where everything's going to start this offseason. Skubal is entering the final stages of team control, and extension talks between him and the Tigers have gone pretty much nowhere. So the Tigers have two paths. They can either cash in now and reset with a massive haul, or they can see it through to the trade deadline and let the team's performance dictate what happens next. If the Tigers are in contention again, you carry them through to the playoffs and hope you've built enough of a winning environment to convince them to stay. But let's be real, with Scott Boras being his agent, he's going to get that bag. For me, I'm seeing it through to the deadline. Skubal stays for now and will let the team's direction in 2026 determine what happens with him. Now let's get into the free agent decisions because they still have some big decisions to make this offseason. Jack Flaherty has a player option for $20 million, and given how his production slipped in 2025, there's no reason for him to test free agency. He'll stay in Detroit for another season, hoping to bounce back, which would be greatly appreciated as the Tigers need a number 2 behind Skubal. Gleyber Torres, who's about to be an unrestricted free agent, absolutely needs to stay in town. He had a great season in 2026 and was a huge part of stabilizing this offense. He's consistent, he has a veteran presence, and he fits nicely into this lineup and helps balance out some of the youth and experience. Keeping him in town should be one of the first priorities beyond Skubal. Paul Sewald, on the other hand, has a mutual option for $10 million, and the Tigers will decline it on their end. He only appeared in 4 games for Detroit and finished the year with a 4.58 ERA. He just didn't show enough in Detroit to warrant keeping around for that much money, especially whenever relievers are kind of hit or miss. But then you look at Kyle Finnegan, who had a terrific short stint with the Detroit Tigers, putting up a 1.5 ERA in his 16 appearances. He gives this bullpen something it's been lacking, stability and reliability, so he's absolutely worth keeping around as a middle relief option that will hopefully get built on during this offseason. Jose Urquidy had a $4 million club option, but the Tigers won't pick that up. His rehab didn't go nearly as expected, and when he returned, the results just weren't very good either. Just not worth keeping around for Detroit. And the same goes for Alex Cobb, Rafael Montero, Tommy Kahnle, and Chris Paddock, who are all unrestricted free agents, and they will all hit the open market. Moving into the prospect pool, the Tigers' future looks incredibly bright with those big 3 prospects that we've been hearing about for a long time. Kevin McGonigal will be the fastest to reach the majors. He was just incredible last season, and he's the number 2 prospect in baseball for a reason. He has an elite hit tool, legit pop, and has a mature approach at the plate for his age. He walks more than he strikes out and can play any second, short, or third. There's very little to knock in his game, and he could force his way up way sooner rather than later. Max Clark looks every bit the center fielder of the future. He continued to improve offensively year after year, and the power finally showed up in 2025 with 14 homers. He's also walking more than he strikes out, and defensively he's already big league ready. And then there's Josue Briseño. The mashing bat exploded onto the scene after a historic Arizona Fall League showing last season. He carried that momentum straight into 2025, hitting 20 homers with 76 RBIs. The glove, it's a question mark. Who knows where he'll end up long term, probably at first base, but that bat will absolutely play at the next level. Now, if you're deep into the weeds of the Tigers system, you might be wondering where Tyrone Lorenzo is, and that's because he got traded to the Tampa Bay Rays in my Tampa Bay Rays rebuild, along with Jake Rogers in exchange for Pete Fairbanks. Fairbanks gives this bullpen something it desperately needs, a true closer. He's been one of the most consistent high-leverage relievers in baseball, posting a 2.83 ERA last season and bringing elite strikeout stuff to Detroit. He's going to be the anchor that solidifies the back end of this rotation moving forward. Players returning to the roster will have to start at catcher with Dylan Dingler. Colt Keith will start at first base versus righties. Javier Baez will be back at shortstop. Bradley Green will man left field. Parker Meadows takes center. And Kerry Carpenter will be in right field versus right-handed pitching. Spencer Torkelson will primarily be the DH, while Wenzel Perez serves as the platoon partner to Carpenter in the outfield. Zach McKinstry will platoon at third base, and Jahmai Jones will platoon with Keith, which will occasionally shift Torkelson to first base. Eduardo Valencia, an unranked prospect who tore up AAA last season, will be called up to serve as the backup catcher. his offensive production was just too strong to ignore, and he can serve as a solid backup to Dingler. As for the platoon at third base, the Tigers will dip in the free agency to grab Yohan Moncada. He mashed right-handed pitching in 2025 with the Angels, and while his defense is far from pretty, he gives the Tigers a legitimate bat at third. The rotation will remain steady with Casey Mize, Reese Olson, and Troy Melton rounding it out behind Skubal and Flaherty. The bullpen will return Will Best, Brennan Hanafy, Tyler Holton, Brent Herter, and Jason Foley coming back off injury. For the final spot, the Tigers will add a high-leverage lefty, Alex Vesia. Over the last 5 seasons with the Dodgers, Vesia has just been dominant, posting a 3.02 ERA in 2025 while striking out a ton of batters and virtually being unhittable versus lefties. And that's going to do it for the video. The Tigers have seemed to hit a little bit of a ceiling with this current roster, and they need to make some moves to not only break past that ceiling, but also try to entice Skubal to stay in town. In doing so, they can't really spend a whole lot on multi-year contracts because they need every penny they can to try to get Skubal back for 2027.